Scituate Board of Health meeting, Scituate Town Hall, Selectmen's Hearing Room, Monday, March 24th, 2014, 7 PM, thereabouts.
Make a motion to accept the agenda Monday, March 24th, 2014, 7 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, meeting opened, agenda accepted. Director's report, DEP STU policy.
All right, if you would like, we can delay that, and I won't keep Gordon here.
Yeah, fine, we can jump back.
Yeah.
Move to him first, and then we can
Okay, works for
discuss the
us.
stuff he has no interest in later.
Might be more interesting than this.
You never know.
No, I don't think so.
All right, with that suggestion, we'll move forward to wind turbine update. Presenting Gordon Dean.
Well, I think as you heard, there was a sampling event on March 15th, which was Saturday morning. Saturday morning, I think.
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, I went to bed at 4 o'clock, 4:30, and stayed in bed for a while.
Before, can I just, do we want an update that there was testing, or do we want to even review, you're going to give us some type of,
I'm going to give you some results from, and some other stuff.
But they're not official, like, broke down, or are they semi-finished?
Well, it's
Kind of a rough result,
It's
preliminary?
It's just the numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not the whole report. I mean, it's not an analysis or discussion of it. Because generally, they would want to just do that once when they got all the results.
Okay.
So these are the preliminary results.
if we accept them, they're public record, that's,
Yeah.
and that's fine, I just
Yeah.
was wondering how you wanted to handle it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think we're all
I
right.
don't have a problem with them. I mean, they are.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure that we were, just everybody was sort of on the same wavelength there. Okay.
Perfect, we're on the same wavelength.
Hand him out.
I've been in court all day. Can I push the button? And the first page is is really what DEP looks at, which is the LMAX level versus the L90 level. You will.
Gordon, I don't see a time.
Hmm?
I don't see a time.
We started a little after midnight, and we got done approximately by 3:30 in the morning. We started, if you want an anecdotal here, we started at 151 Driftway, the McKeevers, and these are in order, actually, how things got sampled, where they got sampled. So we started there and did the sampling at that point. The turbines were on when we got there. We got done with the sampling with the turbines sound on. We turned the turbines off and sampled for 3 5-minute periods. Then we, with the turbines still off, went to Moreland Road, went all the way down to the marsh area as far as we could to get away from the trees that were whistling in the wind and making noise. And with the turbine off at that point in time, took readings, and then took readings with the turbine on. And you'll see that there's a note of NA. Basically, the turbine was not audible about background noise at that point in time at Moreland Road.
On Moreland Road.
At Moreland Road, yes. We then, turbine on, proceeded up to 149 Gilson, took readings with the turbine on, turned the turbine off, moved to 122 Gilson, turbine off, and turned the turbine on for those readings, and then went to 127 Gilson for the turbine, whatever was it, that went on and turned it off. For that, and as I said, got done about 3:30 at night.
This differential being across from the ocean.
Excuse me?
The differential from being across from the ocean.
Second page is something else that we take for our own purposes because of we've heard about disputes with DEP in terms of how things are measured. These are more actual comparable comparisons of comparing an L90 to an L90 as opposed to an Lmax to L90. So this is table one of the way they currently do it. Now, for your convenience, because I didn't know what you had in your files, what I did is I took this data, which I just gave you, which we got from the consultants, and put them on one page with the previous recording information. Again, I've highlighted what,
Thank you.
in yellow, what DEP looks at as they currently do their analysis. Also, at the top of the page, I put some additional information for you. Some of that's in the footnotes here, and some of it's other stuff we looked up. What the hub height speed range was, it's how many meters per second up at the top of the turbine. At each of the two sampling events, what the recorded 10-meter wind speed range was, what the direction was, what the tide was, and what the output was. And all those things have been discussed at this board meeting. You can see back in the August sampling, there was very little wind at the ground level. The turbine was operating with very little wind. It will still have higher wind levels at the hub, but not enough to be at full output, which I think the board was concerned about. Whereas on the March 15th sampling, we were clearly at full output. There was a range, because even when you have strong winds, there are times when things will just simply calm down a little bit. And what you'll probably get in the final report is more detailed information on wind speeds during each of the sampling events.
I have a question, Gordon. Some of the other variables you're talking about, we're talking about running at 60% capacity. How does last week's sampling compare to that? Meaning the average wind speed was 20?
The requirement was that we operate at least 60% capacity. If you look at the line here called turbine production,
Yeah.
you'll see we averaged approximately 1489. Total output's 1500, so we were well above the 900s of 60%.
So, yeah, so total output was 1,500, so we were
That's what we averaged during that time period.
humming.
97%.
You'll see that during, for a short period, as I was just mentioning, there was a little bit of a lull, and the wind speed dropped down, and hence the production dropped down during part of the sampling period.
So it was humming right along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was windy that night.
Right.
You can see that we reached at the hub 40 miles an hour.
Right, that's,
So that's great. I mean,
this
this
is
is helpful.
Yeah.
So I thought if I could sort of put all that on one page, it might be helpful for you guys.
No, this is
to
perfect.
Look at it all.
Thanks very much. Okay. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, do you have any questions or anything?
No.
I think the report is pretty self-explanatory, and with the explanation given, I mean, there's good numbers here. Do you have any?
No, my
Question or
only
comment?
question was what I asked, and Mr. Dean answered it perfectly, so.
Now, is there another round of testing that's going to be done, or is that it? That's the testing? That's what we've agreed to get tested, that met within our parameters?
The first time, I'm not sure that the testing met our parameters. It possibly did when they went out there, but by the time they got there, I don't think the parameters were still in vogue. But they still tested because they run out. And Mr. Dean agreed to 4 tests, so these are only 2.
Okay.
So there should be some more.
Right, but the first one, we changed it to the south-southwest wind direction, because that's what everybody asked for. So the first one was just westerly, if you notice that.
Right.
And along with along with, not being up to what it needed to in order for us to get the proper sample. I think a couple more, the high wind speed from that south-southwest direction.
I think we have a better shot of if winter ever leaves, that we could have that wind direction more
Right.
often. Sure wasn't around much this winter.
But this is good solid because it's noted that the vegetation was nil. As far as I know, there's really not much animal stuff going on, you know what I mean? The peepers haven't come out, anything that could disrupt that. So, ideally, that's what we were looking for a year ago when things slipped away from us because it got later into the spring, and then all the questions came out. So this is a pretty good thing of what we wanted.
This was a high tide event.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
helps.
think it was almost a full moon.
Yeah, it was close.
Tough to explain, the big tides are coming up this weekend. Yeah. I forget how it goes, I'd have to look. It'll be a new moon, so the spring and new moons are the high tides.
So, okay, good.
But it's good, the tides were high, and I understand that, yeah. But that's like, we waited, 9 months to get a good southwesterly wind. How do you coincide that with a lunar high tide that only happens once a month? We're doing the best we can, and I'm thankful that you guys got out there and did do some testing. And I'm
Yeah, I
glad it
think-
was at a high tide, but
This gives us more than we had, and it gives us,
it could be years to get exact ideal conditions.
yes, it could.
Well, and that's my question, and I raised at the last board meeting, if we had more flexibility. One of the things they've talked about, yes, they've talked about the west-southwest wind, okay, but they've also talked about 5 to 7 miles per hour. And you'll see that, the first sampling was a little below that, second sampling was above that.
Right.
We had more flexibility that if we got a wind, regardless of direction, looked like it was gonna be 5 to 7 miles an hour at surface level, which is, surface level is fine, it's 10 meters. We could do a sampling event and sample at these locations and try to maybe get someone to, more directly downwind, if you provide some flexibility. We don't feel comfortable just going out and doing our own sampling when we've had the board's direction to how to sample.
No, that's understood.
I don't want the data to be saying, well, I'm sorry, that one didn't count because it wasn't exactly on target.
Right, we don't want to be scrutinizing you as we don't want to be scrutinized as much by the public too. So there's that whole balance of what we're trying to get it for everybody.
Do you have any of the information
What's
from
more,
the complaint?
is the board more,
Yes, sir.
we want that direction wind? What output do we want and/or what wind speed?
Well, do you want to
That-
see what the complaints show before you continue that discussion? So you can see that information relative?
Sure. Yeah. You got the work done, let's see it. Yeah.
We've been working.
Yeah, no,
At the last board meeting, I presented, I think, the top table dealing with wind direction.
thank you very much.
We have been trying to compile the wind speed and power output with complaints. The problem has been that sometimes, people complain, it was all night long. Well, the wind, as you just saw with our, 3.5 hour sampling period, the wind can change during those time periods. So what we tried to do here was say, okay, when we got the complaints, we took in percentages, what was the minimum wind speed during that time period, what was the maximum wind speed during that time period, what was the average. And again, the community did say in the 5 to 7 meters per second range, and you'll see that sort of, and the average wind 7 to 9 meters, low wind at 5 meters. It does seem to be sort of in that range, and output of approximately, your target of over 900 kW, 60% capacity, we're at 1,052.
Gordon, do you have the DEP guidelines that tell us which decibel levels are acceptable and what's not acceptable? Meaning that-
No, it's a differential between
10.
Oh, it's a differential between
the two
the
test
two
days.
tests, okay, that's what it is.
And that's the, in yellow, it's the difference
So it's the
between
greater
the
of
ambient
10.
and the max.
Okay.
And that's what I've highlighted in yellow there as the numbers. And to meet DEP requirements, it has to be less than 10.
Less than 10. Well, there we go.
So Southwest is there with all complaints.
It's obvious.
6375, because I was almost going to say the test on a wind direction where it was hitting at James Landing, pretty open spot, but the complaints out there,
That's
it's
south, that'd be full south, right? If it was good-
No,
easterly, I think more easterly.
Or coming easterly would be off the water. So if you come from James Landing, it's coming from the south, no?
Right, but it would be the noise carrying towards
Oh,
James
the noise
Landing.
carrying towards,
Yes,
so
you'd
yeah, so
want
that would be
to,
a-
I'd have to look at a plan or a map,
Yeah.
but I think it would be more easterly.
Easterly, northeasterly, yeah.
okay, so,
And if you want a little primer on what decibels mean, decibels are recorded on a logarithmic scale. So when you go from 10 dBA to 20 dBA, it's actually what's called a 10-fold increase in the power level. But on a audible thing, you know that we talk about dBA, which is how one hears things. On an audible thing, it's about twice as large. An increase of 10 dBA is 10 times the amount of power, but it's about twice the amount of sound that you hear.
Interesting.
And when you add things, if, say, the background was 40 dBA and the wind turbine was actually making 40 dBA at that location, ignoring background, you add 40 to 40, you get 43.
That's some funky math.
So
Do you remember your logs, Mike?
on the 1052 kilowatt at 56%, that is saying that 56% of the time, you're at 1052?
56% of the time, the complaints were at approximately this level, yes. Production was approximately.
Hence the
that level.
reason that's 66%, give or take, of output. Because maximum output's 1,500, so it's 66% of output.
And I think that might be part of the response to this testing, which I'm happy to see, but they may say that the wind was too high and there was too much ambient sound.
Yeah, but, okay.
I know, I understand,
But
but.
even at McKeever's, who is,
I just-
so
I
we know that-
understand.
Even at McKeever's, what is the distance from the wind turbine to McKeever's property? 1,000 feet? Not even 1,000 feet?
It's like 600 and something,
600,
660.
it wasn't even the greater than 10-point increase, and that was at the wind speed that, with the wind really cranked it.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
maximum wind speed.
Maximum wind speed, because it was almost at 100% output capacity. So it wasn't even well, what I'm saying is, it's just not.
we're
Well, I
not
guess the
seeing the
reason-
numbers.
And there was no, like Russell said, there was no vegetation around his house, there was no buffer, there was no anything to absorb anything. You know, so. that's
And my
good.
only topic for discussion is that if there's another round of testing to be done, what should we look at to say, we got a low-end gap, we got a high-end, do we try to get something in the middle? And that way we have an average that says,
Well, you can talk to Mother Nature and order that for us.
yeah, no, I know.
Well, I would say, I don't know, give me your thoughts on this, Gordon, but I would say anything between 5 and 11 is fair game to test.
5 and 11 miles per hour at the hub.
Well, wind speed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Well, we did that in August, didn't we? With an average of 11?
But, I mean.
But it was westerly.
But would we still get the 60% output
No.
approximate?
No.
No.
Is that directly correlated?
You know what?
The August wind speed, again, at the hub was, in August, was about 5, the average, at meters per second. For your convenience, we also, I mean, everything we get off the SCADA system is meters per second, but we've also put it in miles per hour. So when it says average 11, that's in miles per hour. And this chart I gave you is in meters per second.
Well, I'm looking at the meters per second point.
Okay.
I mean, as being,
So you're saying average 11 meters per second?
well, no, some fair game looks between 5 and 11.
And if you look at the March 15th sampling, we were between 5 and 18 meters per second.
Right.
Averaged about 11.
So, I mean, I would say that those numbers would be fair game because you have a high percentage of all the complaints at those records.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Either way, it says we're trying to narrow it into where those complaints are. And I would agree with that too. And that might be.
But the thing is if you agree to that speed range, then you're gonna have to give up the capacity.
And how does the capacity fall with DEP? Is DEP the one that wants the 60%? That was ours.
That was us.
That was us.
Yeah.
So in that, we're still following in line with DEP.
Yeah,
Yes.
theirs is more a method. They don't say necessarily wind speed, direction, and capacity.
Right,
They're
well-
saying you test with this way, at these times.
Right. So we're not changing any of that. So if we change the 60% policy to fill in a gap here, then we're okay. We're not doing anything against DEP.
No.
Okay.
We're not changing their protocol, no.
I mean, I can go along with that. I don't know what you guys feel, we do have our over 60% tested, so it's,
Yeah, no, I think we should
Adjust.
adjust it.
Yep, I agree.
All right.
and keep that wind direction the same, that
Keep the
south-southwest.
same-
Yeah, you
Absolutely,
have to
keep the
go-
wind direction.
right.
Absolutely with the winds, I mean.
Right, because according to these records that were given to us, it's not even close, 63, 75% is from there, all the other ones are, it's just so low. Everybody's important, but going after the mass here.
He was just talking about wind direction, but that's been decided again and again.
Sorry, so was there a change in the direction from the board in terms of output, or is you keeping, still targeting 60%?
I think we'll probably vote on it, but we're just from talk here, from what I'm gathering, and we can, I guess, put it to vote so it's official on record, but no, lowering the output, excuse me, yeah.
We're gonna probably, I think what we're going to try and focus is on the direction and the wind speed now, as opposed to the capacity.
Okay.
So that will give you a range from like 5 to 11, regardless of capacity.
But seeing where most of the complaints are, right in that southwest, we're gonna stay right there.
And then we would stay within this, right in here.
Right. And wherever the capacity falls, it falls.
Yeah.
Right. Professionally, does that make sense from where you're sitting?
Again, we're trying to address the citizens' complaints.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I think if we could get a sampling event that was a little more windy than the first one and less windy than the second one.
In that southwest wind direction,
In the southwest wind direction.
right,
Then we have a good spread.
That would do it.
yeah.
Well,
And that-
we
yeah.
need a minimum. I mean, it can't be that,
Well, yeah, I think the minimum has already been set by August 14th and 15th.
because that was 20%, right?
We'll say, well, 5 to 11, and,
It was 320 kilowatts, so it's 20% this
Yeah.
year.
20%.
It doesn't matter, it's gonna fall where it may be, do you know what I mean? So if we go by the wind speed,
Yeah,
it's gonna
because- and
fall where it is,
because-
wherever it falls, it falls.
even when you're doing tests over a time period at different sites, you don't have consistent wind totally. So you will have a range of the wind speed, you'll have a range of the capacity.
If it gets to more testing, then that's,
Yeah, we got a low end, we got a high end, we can nail it in the middle, and then we got more
yeah,
testing.
I think it should lead to more testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, let's,
All right.
Somebody's gotta make a motion.
so a minimum of 20%,
Yeah, you can say that.
minimum to 20 to 60, is that what you're thinking? Steve, why don't you can make a motion?
Sure, all right, make a motion for the future testing for Mr. Dean, keeping the wind at southwest keeping the wind speed from 3 meters per second.
No, 5.
5 meters per second to 11 meters per second. And wherever the power output falls, let it fall with a minimum of 20%.
Minimum capacity.
Minimum 20% capacity,
Yeah.
which I don't think will be a problem.
Okay. I'll second that.
That being seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
I couldn't find a pen, I just want to make sure I get the target. Minimum 5 and maximum 11 meters per second, southwest wind.
So basically an average day.
Yeah.
Wherever the tide falls. We'll
Yeah,
just get a
wherever
sample.
wherever the tide falls. Because you want to know what, one of them was low tide, one of them was high tide, so.
Done.
Yeah, done.
Well, when the tide changes, I mean, you're out there for 3.5 hours, you know that the tide.
It's gonna drop below the marsh anyways. Yeah. Yeah.
Or come back up.
I'll come back up. That's right, that's right. Now, on that average, I mean, we can't hold you to it, but do you think it'll be more likely that testing will be done sooner than later? I know I can't, but.
Based on this past winter, who knows?
Right, but I mean, that condition should be more favorable to,
I think so, I'll discuss it. We just got an email which I forwarded to Jennifer
Yeah, I just
on their
forwarded to
forecast.
them.
And I was hoping that we, you know, I want to talk to them about maybe this Friday even, if the wind is just right, he's from the west-southwest, that we might be able to make that one work.
and again, I think that would look better because there's still no critters out there. It's been so cold and the leaves, there's nothing, I don't even think crocuses are really coming up yet. The ground's frozen.
It's sporadic.
Yeah, well, maybe in the side of a house that it's really gets sun beaten on, but they're not. I think the frost just left the ground.
It says
Couple
warming
days ago.
here in a more southerly wind direction will occur on Friday morning with winds south-southwest at 11 miles per hour. So if that's Friday morning, by Friday night, who knows what will happen?
Yeah.
So,
Well, Thursday, all depends, Thursday night, Friday morning.
right.
You gotta remember, it's Friday morning starts
It's
at
not within our
12:01.
control.
When it happens, it happens.
Wind is not within our control. I wish it were, I had it blowing up 100% all the time.
Yeah, right. Understood. Well, thank you very much for putting this together, and especially since the
Very
testing was
helpful,
just
I
done
think.
a couple of nights ago, so we do appreciate it. Yeah, well, we'll leave it at that. Hopefully we, knock on wood, we get some favorable wind speed and direction, and we can get some more stuff on paper and analyze it sooner than later.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, wind turbine. Done. Do you want to do the director's report, DEP, STU
Yeah,
policy?
Yeah. As you can see, the effective date from these were November 5th, 2012. I didn't know about that until, because my ability to attend meetings has been restricted by the town administrator for some time. I went to this meeting on my own time and my own nickel, and I'm sitting here listening to them describe this, and I'm go, oh my God, we haven't been doing it right for over a year. I don't think there's any tremendous impact from that, because most of what they are requiring, we do anyway, we just do it in a different order than what they do. The general use one is not as restrictive as the remedial use one. And these are called, it's for secondary treatment units, which is basically most of the alternative innovative systems that we use and that have been approved under that section by the DEP. So, I know I marked up the one on remedial because that's the one that disturbed me the most, because it has more, it actually has more requirements than the general. And this is the one
you know, where we most often use the alternative innovatives is remedial on repairs and stuff and trying to make things work and fit. So basically, you know, I will have to be developing a checklist for Mary to even accept a plan. And that's sort of indicated on page 6, number 20. These are all things that they have to submit with the submittal of the plan in order for us to accept and review. A lot of this is something that we've like I don't think we've asked too many designers for their training certificates, but we have done the things regarding like the deed restrictions and the contracts and all that, but we've done it after the plan approval and before the final sign-off. Now they want everything up front, plus an affirmation from the owner that they have been given the documents that are specified, and that they have the agreements, and that they understand, and blah, 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 blah. I think most of us, when we read this, wanted to shoot the guy at DEP that did this, but nobody was owning up to it at the time, so. So I'm going to have to put that together both on a general use level and on a secondary use level. And the other thing that's very interesting that there are some things the installer has to give us before he starts construction. So one of the, which is also a copy of their training in this particular innovative use, and that they are, you know, going to do it correctly and all that. So it's going to be different, and it's going to be more difficult to accept plans because of what all this sign-off is. Basically, so I will have to give Mary a check-off chart. And then she's got, all this stuff is probably going to be included, you know, in a top cover letter or something, or top set of documents. And she's going to have to go through and check each one off. But on the other hand, I am going to give the same checklist to all the engineers. So no excuses. So that it will hopefully streamline it for Mary at our end. Hey, you got what we got, and if you don't include it, don't be surprised if it gets kicked back.
Is Mary's pre-training for a health agent?
Gatekeeper.
Never gonna happen.
The
Gatekeeper.
gatekeeper, yes.
I have my checklist, you don't get by.
I'm going to give her a little hatchet or gavel. Boom, boom, boom. Now you're this, you didn't prove this, and this. So, I mean, and there's some additional things I have to look for on,
Is there anything retroactive that needs to be done now that we've?
no. The horse is out of the barn. So I'm working very hard this week. I have 3 deliverables for emergency management, emergency preparedness. I've got the report that's due tomorrow, this afternoon. I've got a drill tomorrow morning for 2 hours, I think. Then I have another major report due on Thursday. Then I want to wrap up my healthy Scituate, and then with Mary's help, I'm going to probably distribute the all-hazard plans finally. After many years, we just have to do a few quick updates, and then we can get those done. But, you know, it's gonna be different. One of the things that is different on the remedial use, they required that you show in the plan a best feasible upgrade such that if the alternative failed, you'd have a place to put something else. And I'm going.
Just for a short-term
and
period?
I'm going, what do you mean something else? This is the something else. This remedial system is the answer. Well, there's nothing, and then you cannot build over that. It's like doing a reserve area, and they're calling it the best feasible replacement or something.
Yeah, most of
And
them.
we're going, since when have we ever used a replacement system? They always change the laws, and any replacement area you ever had never gets used, because you can't. By the time it fails, the rules are different. So.
A lot of these systems we have are on tiny lots, that's why we have the system, there's no other room for anything else, there is no room for anything
I
else.
know, we're shoehorning them.
Yeah.
But you can also, what you also can say is, your best feasible upgrade is replace in place.
Right. Well, that's
So, you know, that's
why we're here in the first place.
that's the catch-all. But on the other hand, you know, these desk jockeys don't know what real life is like out here. Excuse me, come here a minute. Where do you think that's gonna be? So, I mean, we have a way to deal with it, which is the whole point when we're repairing something, is how do you deal with it? So, hopefully, it'll all work out, you know, but, if you would like to segue into my future plans, I can tell you
Yeah.
about that. Because Miss Tricia hasn't got a replacement for me yet. She's asked if I would stay on part-time, and I'm amenable to that, but we haven't hashed anything out because she asked me the night of my party, and I've been busy since then. And I told her that I had these 3 biggies this week, and that, you know, I wanted to get these out of the way, and that, you know, I definitely would.
And your conscience is clear.
Stop, yeah.
Yeah.
I would, you know, I would definitely come in and talk to her, we would work something out. But I'm not interested in a full week, I'm not, I'm definitely not interested at 8:30 in the morning, and I may not even be interested in a full day, but, we'll talk it out, but I think the bare minimum that I need to do is to make sure the sign-offs happen and building permits and certificate of compliance, and that plans get reviewed. If there's some emergencies, I can deal with those. I've promised and offered to continue with Sam's and to volunteer at the shelter if I'm here, but I will sleep in my own bed that night. And I hope, you know, that
Yeah.
works out.
I would just suggest, you know, as you lay that out, what's expected of you and what would be covered and what wouldn't be covered, and then at least the board, you know, through Mary would be able to tell us what hasn't been covered.
Well,
And-
she'll have my, you know, I'm willing to do inspections too, but the inspectors the contractors have to go on notice. They're supposed to be telling me in advance of when they're gonna do a job, and then call the morning they're gonna need an inspection, even if it isn't right away, so that I can foresee in my time frames that I'm dealing with, and if I have perhaps had any conflicts. But they haven't been that good about it lately. It hasn't been that busy because of the weather and everything, but they're gonna have to be now.
And would it include meetings?
I'm willing to come to a meeting if I'm needed.
I mean, you get my point, is spell out, I don't
I
think,
mean, I'm not
I don't think you should leave it to chance. No, just spell out what the deal is and what isn't part of it. I mean, that was my,
Yeah, I'm not opposed to coming to some meetings, that doesn't bother me. I mean, certainly if there's a plan that needs to come, I would come. If we're still trying to nail down some regs, I can come, that's nothing. But, I mean, I'm not sure really what's coming down the pike either,
yeah.
so.
Are you, well, I guess you'll find out. So you'll be here part-time and then help to facilitate the easing in of the new person? Is that her goal? Or
Well, that was my original offer.
I'm hoping for that too. I think that's, fingers crossed, that
Well, Mary's got
natural.
all my phone numbers, including the one in Florida.
Natural.
And I have done conference calls from Florida before with emergency preparedness on vacation. And emergency preparedness was concerned too, because of who we're gonna contact, we need somebody down there. I said, I'm staying on part-time, so just leave it the way it is, and I'll let you know when things change, so.
There's a lot to the job, and it would be tough just to throw that in somebody's lap and walk away,
Really?
Yeah, well, it's understood here. Yeah.
Well, that's how,
But
why I hope.
you gave your notice months ago too, so it's nothing you did, believe me. It was too bad we didn't have the position filled a month ago.
Well,
I
they
think
were
that
up.
would have been a great transition, right into it on both ends,
Well, I think that was the plan, but she didn't know the other two people who were ahead of me who were resigning, that in those positions are still open as well, so,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's not anything, it's just the way the chips have fallen, and
yeah. so.
now, you mentioned a few things, and maybe I didn't catch it in my mind. What about restaurant inspections and different things like that? Nellie, we have, and
Nellie does the restaurants.
so she can work through Mary fine. Is she on a pretty regular schedule that they test every couple of weeks, and that would be, Mary can handle that at the
At
office?
the beginning of the year, I give her a monthly schedule,
Okay,
and then if she finds the adequate violations, then she schedules the reinspection and lets Mary know that they have to pay the reinspection fee.
right, and then she'll bring the reinspection report back to the office for
Yeah.
filing, okay. And now, somebody comes in for a new perk test. Is that something Mary can handle to set the perk test up? You don't have to be there. We have Ralph Cole or one of our other
Witnesses.
witnesses come in to do that.
Yeah.
So we're covered that way. Again, as far as plan review, if you're not around, then kind of the town of Situate's on hold for a little bit.
No,
Do we
I
have
don't-
help from surrounding towns if necessary? Would Marshfield be willing to help? Would Norwell?
Well, I'm
Would-
gonna do plan review. That's not,
Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Take it to the extreme, if 40 plans came in, that would be full, you'd have to be
Huh?
here. If 30, if 20 plans came, I'm making them see an example. But,
Yeah, but
you don't know what's gonna, you
the
don't
worst
know
I
what's
ever
coming
got,
through
the worst I ever got was
the.
14.
No, but
we don't know what's gonna happen after April 1st
You
either.
don't know what's coming
And
through the door, I
You
guess.
may
that's-
walk.
I think that's Russell's point, is that one
The
plan could come in, or
contingencies
10
on
can,
that.
and so if you're only gonna be there for 4 hours, then you're only gonna be able to look at four plans, the 5th and 6th will get.
For the next time you're in?
I will, don't worry about it, I'll get them done. I'll get them done.
Okay,
Well,
I'm
it sounds
just-
like you're not gonna be part-time.
Well, no, you're just gonna have to see how it works. That's
Right.
the bottom line. It's,
Yeah. But if it's what it is the town of Situate's on hold, then the town of Situate's on hold for certain.
Well, remember, we have 45 days to look at a plan.
Okay, no, I'm just saying, we'll have to see how it works.
So if push came to shove, then we may have to look surrounding towns. We've always had help from Mr. Farabella, we've always had help from Mr. Flynn and different people if we.
Well, that's not what we ultimately used them for. We used them for, construction inspections, basically.
Gotcha.
But, I don't.
So what's the 45 days then if we don't sign off on?
That is considered tacit constructive approval.
Yeah.
Same as planning board or anything like that, they just allow it.
Mhm.
That's a big loophole.
It is on ours because I found quite a few mistakes.
I would think on health you couldn't have a loophole like that. I would think our regulations are a little more
And the other thing is
stiffer
if-
than that.
If we get a big building boom, we tend to get other people that we are unfamiliar with, and then we tend to find different and/or more errors than usual sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes they're not,
We wouldn't want any unscrupulous errors.
I wouldn't say unscrupulous, they're just perhaps unintentional, but they're there, so they need to be corrected.
Right.
So
Well, that's the process.
we make sure that it happens, but sometimes they don't turn them around right away, so, people are asking, yeah, did that plane come out? Yeah, we're waiting for a correction, not our problem.
All right, just preparing.
But we are finding
For the
files
worst
a
and
lot
hoping for the
easier.
best. Just things, make sure that people are aware of, that's all, for better or worse,
Yeah.
what the fallback plan is.
Yeah.
All right, well, so this potentially could be your last meeting with us.
Don't cry. I'll be around.
I have a question on the tobacco regulations that we passed a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
How is that being, how are people being notified and so on and so forth?
we sent copies out to everyone.
You did? Okay. If I could
And
be
there was a public notice that went in the paper, so.
if I could make-
And according to
Yeah.
what my colleagues are, more and more are passing 21.
You see the news all the time. Every few days you see something pop up.
I've gotten like 4 emails since one of my last meetings of people that have passed it.
Have you had any calls from other towns saying, hey, how'd your board do this? How'd you guys go about it? Have you had any?
Not really, not really.
Any negative feedback?
Mary, I think, got one call, but nobody wanted to show up and talk, or did they?
Somebody was supposed to come in tonight, but nobody was.
I feel like it was perhaps a younger person.
Yeah, it was.
But my colleague said that there was a couple of pediatricians that were going around or making calls or submitting letters or something. I don't exactly remember their position, but some of them were having mixed results with the boards in terms of their attitudes and promoting whatever their position was. So that wasn't a real good idea, depending on how the boards took it. I've seen some colleagues have emailed, yeah, we're doing it. Some say, no, my board doesn't want to do it for reasons A, B, C, or something like that. And it's a local decision. That's how it's
It is
going.
right now, yeah.
That's how it's going.
Yeah, till the big cities go one way or the other. Yeah, it's been interesting. Everybody from the health standpoint 100% agrees with it. I still get a little flack for civil liberties, but like I said, I
think more
don't
people-
sit on a civil liberties board. It's a health board, and that's where the decision came from, and that's what the debate was and the discussion, so.
Yeah, I really think that people are getting a little bit more serious about their health and the long-term effects, and as it relates to healthcare costs. I mean, healthcare costs is right now, it's in the forefront all over the place. So, when you're looking at something like this and the price of them to begin with, I mean, you got to think about it. You're going to be paying twice or 3 or 4 times whatever you originally paid, and is that worth it? So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the update and everything else. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns with, I guess the last topic was Jennifer timing, and that's smoking, and kind of led into certain questions about that, so I was just. Next on the agenda is well regulations. I did not read through them all with a fine-tooth comb. I did skim over them. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at them either. There was a lot of information there.
I did. I read the separate towns that we had, and I skimmed over the state one, and I thought the Walpole one was the most thorough.
Mhm.
There's a couple of things that I wanted to take from, I think it was Norwood, but I thought Walpole was the most thorough, and that we should model it after that. That was my opinion.
Okay, I know that in the beginning, I can't remember what, but I can remember when. I wanted to take, I wanted to add some definitions that were in various versions of various towns' regs, and I know some were definitely were from Marshfield, and I think there was, I'm not sure which the other town was, but I know one was Marshfield, that I wanted to add some additional definitions that weren't covered in like the state's one, because the state's definitions are pretty good. But there were just some that weren't there.
I mean, the state one is just so cumbersome.
Yeah.
Well, the trouble with the state one is it's a teaching tool as well as regs, and you really need to separate it out. Otherwise, it goes on forever.
Yeah.
You're killing trees left and
I
right.
used it as reference, because some of the stuff I was just worried about.
I think
Yeah.
we start simple, and at some point, if it, we need to adopt a state or complicate that or further them, we can. I mean, I think the overall thinking is to get something in place, because there is nothing in place.
One that you didn't have that Mary just gave me earlier this evening was from Orleans, and they had, I was looking at the setbacks in that one, and they had a couple that said, they gave a minimum, but they said this distance should be maximized wherever possible, and it was mostly in accordance with drains, because they said that any leakage could follow the line and therefore get closer to the water than you may intend it to be. I totally didn't like Cohasset's. Strike that one out. The other thing that's in there, that's also in the, I want you to look and look at this, and when you go over these a little bit more, think about the retesting. Some of them give a schedule for retesting, and the state does too.
10 years.
10 years, or whatever your local board says.
Yeah. I think we've had this discussion before, that because of people's sensitivities, and we have some very high minerals in our watershed, that I would suggest for an initial well water testing, not irrigation, drinking water, that
Excuse me.
that you get the public drinking water standard, because that tells you everything. Now, those ones up on Old Oaken Bucket Road, that subdivision up there that we approved, they butt up to a cranberry bog that gets treated with herbicides and pesticides. That's the kind of one that if they'd had a well, I want them to get a full testing and want them to have the volatiles tested as well.
How often?
Yeah, it says,
For initial, before it even got approved.
the drinking water one from Marshfield says it has to be at least 200 feet from the cranberry bog. I'd like it to be a lot more than 200 feet.
Well, fortunately for us, they'll be on public water. But I remember when I first began here, there was a guy in here who was renting a house, a more decrepit house in a different spot, but right next to the cranberry bogs. And he's telling me, he wanted to go in and, purchase it and fix it up and everything. And he was talking about a septic system, and I said, and he mentioned he had a well. And I said, wait a minute, where are you? And he told me where he was. I said, you've been drinking out of that well. Aren't you concerned about what they're treating the cranberry bogs with, getting into your water in that well? And he goes, oh, it's no big deal. They tell me to leave for a couple of days every so often, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, holy shit. I said, I'm telling you right now, if you don't connect to public water, I'm not approving you doing anything.
On this list, this is from the water department, and this is what they are saying are the only known potable wells that they know about.
I think they're irrigation.
I don't know, one page of irrigation. Is the second page irrigation as well?
Doesn't say.
She sent me two from 2 different years, and I didn't know why.
Well, I know there's some portable wells, but they're minimal. There's one, I know, on Summer Street. There's one on, I think, Chief Justice Cushing, near the Cohasset line. And
Now, Scituate, if the water line runs by your house, you have to hook up to it, no?
it's not my call.
Yeah.
I mean, I
It's not the
said,
water department's call that if there's a water line by your house, you...
hey, the sewer department, you can't make them hook up to sewer. You think the water can make them hook up to water?
Yeah, I guess they just push in, well, not if we don't have regulation in
Yeah, I
place.
mean, that's, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think we gotta get something in place, and then backtrack on what's existing.
Right.
Well, the thing is, anyone that has a potable well now, it hopefully was originally tested. And if they haven't, if it was a really old well and they haven't retested it, then that wasn't a wise decision.
Right, we've got no way now of
Wait,
calling somebody up to say, hey, you're due to retest, or we're gonna,
well, we could do it going
We don't
forward
even know
if
who
we
to call
did.
up.
we don't know who to call up,
That's-
right? We have no database at all.
So,
Yeah,
but the,
you're looking at it.
Yeah.
but the one thing we can do is we can write a rule that everybody with either a potable or irrigation well that hasn't already told the water department has to tell us.
Because the water department is obviously would be concerned if somebody, if a structure was bypassing a meter and getting water.
Mm.
So it's in their interest to make sure that that they know what, if a structure is on water or on a well. Right?
Well, especially too, since when they make the rules about the irrigation of when you can do it in the summertime, if you're on a well, it doesn't really matter as much as if you're using town water.
Right, and you should probably have a sign posted out front, well water with a permit number.
Yeah, I mean,
That's not a requirement though. I mean, people do it, but you don't have to do it.
Right, but that would be part
Well,
of
I
the
mean,
well
if-
regulations. too.
usually one neighbor rats the other neighbor out, and then the water department goes over to give them a fine or something and finds out, yeah, you're on your own well.
Right.
Well, no, they shouldn't even have to go out. They should, at the office, they should have a list, and they can tell the person that is complaining that the person is on well water.
Well, I mean, that's not us, for us to start compiling that list. I mean, that's not in their budget. That's never gonna happen, unfortunately, except.
No, but how it affects us is when a septic system gets put near a well.
Right.
And we don't even know there's a well.
Right, exactly.
And that's,
Well, the engineers are supposed to show them. Do they?
Right, but that's on the checklist. Are there any wells in this area? So they put themselves on the hook if they don't show a well. And it's discovered that you put your septic system too close to the well. You didn't do your due diligence.
The only other thing they can do is they write on it that it's supposed to be abandoned in accordance with blah, blah, blah.
if it's not known, what due diligence? I mean, you have to.
In my days, we used to walk,
The engineer would have to go to each.
in my days, I used to, yep.
Or the 200 feet from the septic system and,
Mhm. Yep, you'd take a.
but there's no physical evidence of a well, all right?
You'd take a septic, you'd take you'd take an assessor's map and do your 200 foot around, you go bang on doors. Hey, how you doing? Here's my card, this is who I work for. Do you have a well on the property? Why do you want to know? Well, we're designing a septic system over there, and it's not going to affect you, but I have to show it on the plan, and it's only protecting you if you share the information with me. And 99.9% of the people would say, no, I don't, or they would say, yes, I do, and it's right over there, because they don't want their well contaminated by your construction. So it goes under the old thing, if you don't say anything, then you're going to lose in the end. If you speak up now, now you've got an argument. the well pre-exists. We've sat here and heard that debate before too, but the well pre-exists, so, you know, you hold the trump card, so to say.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, no, we used to go bang on the doors, and you, like I say, you give it your best shot.
And
If
in
somebody
the old
wasn't home,
days,
you'd
when
look
we
in the
got,
eye.
when they had wells and then they got town water, they turned the wells into cesspools. Which is like a direct discharge to groundwater.
Yeah, but those were the old groundwater wells, those weren't like your,
And there's really nothing preventing a spite well.
you know, I hear you, but, yeah, but we
Yeah,
also,
there is something in Title V about spite wells.
But not if there's a septic system, not if there's not a septic system there, right?
Well, it's not a spite well then.
Well, it's future spite.
Well, not necessarily. Some people don't have any concept of that when they're doing it.
yeah, I see what you're saying, but you really can't stop somebody from putting a well in if they want to, if they.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that we should. I just want to make sure that we do have something in place. And and then just try to build that database, because I think not having that database is, you're just on inspections. I mean, the state regulations is, even if we didn't have anything in place for testing, they should be testing it every 10 years anyway, just by.
By state
by
code.
default,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So there might be wells out there that haven't been tested in 12 years that we don't know
No,
about.
it's not by state regulations. If you notice that, you'll say that the document is entitled A Guide to
Oh,
Regulations.
God.
You said we can't drag people in, because I thought we could at that point and say,
No.
Because-
show us at least that you've had it done in the past 10 years.
Because,
Right, but it's a guide.
the
It's a guide
reason,
for
the
the
reason it is because it was gonna violate the mandate rule and they'd have to pay for it. And that's why they only put out the guide. And then for us to locally adopt and decide we wanna do ourselves, as opposed to them imposing on us and not giving us any money to do it and then being in violation of Prop 2.5 of a local mandate.
So the state's saying, as you said, a guide every 10
They're,
years.
they're giving us what they feel is best practice. And if
so
we want to
gotta
go by
decide,
it,
is 10 years good or 5 years is good? And I would suggest that the sale of every time the house is sold, you know?
well, I would caveat that. I would say, if it's been over 10 years and the house is sold, then do it.
Yeah, well, somewhere in them guidelines, but I think a
Because
new
that's-
homeowner, I think it's a good way for a new homeowner to realize what they have and to get a test result done, almost like a Title V
Well-
certificate. Maybe the inspection's good for 2 years, so if you had the 10 years and you sold your house on the 11th year, well, then that one's good. But if,
Well, the whole thing
If it's been over 2 years from
is
your
to make
10 year.
sure that they get a copy that shows the testing.
right, well, part of that too, so then, again, they know they have a well.
So,
and somebody's
okay, I'm
getting-
buying this,
Yeah.
and can you prove that it's been tested in the last 10 years? Give me the results.
Right,
You haven't got it tested?
right, it gives a good education to the new homeowner about chemicals and what should be in the
Right.
water and what shouldn't, and,
Because some of them, there's a nitrate and sodium concerns, health-wise.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we are high in iron and manganese, and it can still be potable water, but it's gonna be that yucky brown colors some part of the years too. So if you wanna put in a filtration system, this is the time to know about it. And if any of you have filtration systems, look out, because with all this water line construction, the water is going to be terrible. Until it's all over. Because they're actually gonna be working in 4 different areas of town at once.
All right, do you want to just continue this then?
So what would you like to,
What I would like to do is try and everybody but Stephen go over it again.
no, I'll go over it again, because I'm not.
And then, I will try and pull what I like from the different ones out. And
make
Well,
Good
no,
for Scituate
well,
one?
No, why don't we start with the Walpole one and either deduct or subtract from that?
I like.
Well, that's probably what I was thinking
The Walpole
of.
one, I think this is the most thorough one.
So let's go on the premise, we'll start with the Walpole one, we'll pull some stuff out of there and we'll add, and we'll just start adding and
Delete.
deleting. From that though, use that as our,
This is a good
as our
one.
rough draft.
From the ones that Mary gave us, this is the most thorough that I think.
Yeah,
Well, I may or may not agree with you, but we could start with that premise.
Okay. All right, well,
I mean, I need to
Because
look
you
at
could
it in
ju-
a
you
little
could-
more depth.
you could
and a
juggle
little
10
more
of them.
knowledge of what some of it says or doesn't
like I
say.
said, I went to Google about 4 times and I went to this thing about half a dozen times just like this one.
Yeah.
So, but from reading some of these and what this Walpole one, this one seemed the most thorough to me.
Yeah, I don't want to make it really unwieldy. I want to make it workable. I want to make it become, make sense, readable, whatever.
Yeah, it's not like
But I
a
wanna
huge
do
problem
it-
we see, but we
But
just
I-
need
But
something
I
in
want to
place,
do it
so.
with some understanding of what potential problems are too.
Right.
But some stuff may not be in there. We should
According
maybe
to
add
the water
some.
department, there's only 20 places in town that we have to worry about.
Well,
Which we know is not
No.
accurate.
correct, I mean,
You know it's not accurate.
So
So
we'll,
how do we?
because somebody could be, back to the sort of the bypassing and using that nefarious example, but somebody could be using town water and telling them they have a well. But we need them, if they have a well, they better be getting tested, right?
Especially if it's potable, yeah. They don't care about irrigation, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
So I see the golf courses, they, obviously there's a for irrigation.
oh, yeah.
Those Walker's not on here, though, was it? 2 of the golf courses was Widows on there?
Hadley was on there, and I think Scituate Golf Club's on there, but Widows is not on there.
Was Widows use their own those own little ponds?
I don't know, is it considered a well if you just suck it out of an open pond?
They're near a well, so I'm not sure that they want to be drawing it down or not. I don't know what they do.
Next to that landfill, that well's gotta be, that water can't be good.
No, there's a slurry wall.
Oh, there's a slur well?
That's how they built the landfill, with a slurry wall. Okay, we done here?
We'll continue the wells. Well, seeing how this could be your last meeting, Jennifer, just simply say thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
And, whether you're staying on or not, again, this could be your last meeting, so I just wish you
Thanks.
good tidings for the future, whatever it may be you do. And
More work.
Well, it sounds like you'll be able to proceed with the future anyway, so.
I'll be around. I know more people here than I know where I live, because I'm here more than I'm there. That's my husband, he'll tell you.
Meeting adjourned?
Meeting adjourned.